Okay, how's everyone doing? We have 56 people on Zoom. We have about 20 people here. How many of you are coming back? Please raise your hand. Oh, thank you. That makes me feel good that you came back. Before we kick off, I'm delighted to have our Dean here. So please say thank you to Dean. Yes. None of this would be possible without Dean Richard. So thank you, Dean. Let's get started. So all of you use AI to write poetries, right?
Yeah.
Today we'll talk about how to use the same technology to impact your business or your consumer life, okay? And folks on the bridge, I cannot see you. So if you have a question, put it on chat and Pratyusha will interrupt me. So don't wait for questions until the end. We can have an ongoing discussion, okay? Like last time, you guys will have access to the slides, so you don't have to take pictures. And I put more slides than I'll speak to, so you have the full end-to-end story, okay? So gentle reminder, this is a 6-part series. We are in week 2. We have 4 more to go. One change, the first 4 sessions are hybrid, in-person and Zoom. The 5th session, we cannot get a room. It's all booked out. So we'll make it remote only. You'll see communications from America. The last one will be in person only. So all of you will be back here and we'll have a lot of fun, okay? All right, so before we talk about today's topic, just to refresh your memory, you guys have all this, you all have the slides. Just soundbite what we discussed last time. Number 1, AI is here. It's growing fast. You know, when I was working at Qualcomm, I would not take vacation because I'm like, if I go away for a week, I'll miss something, right? Now that I'm all in AI, I stopped eating breakfast and lunch and dinner because if I spend time there, you know, things change, right? So things are changing really, really fast. Number 2, we looked at 75-year history and what will happen the next 25 years. So sometimes if you take a 100-year view, you have a very different perspective, right? So AI is not new. It has been around. It is older than internet, mobile, cloud. All of us have been using AI for as long as you have been around. Every time you use Google, Uber, Netflix, you've been using AI. It has come to the forefront because ChatGPT gave it a way to interact, right? So ChatGPT gave AI the iPhone moment, the browser moment, and we looked at the evolution. Number 3, AI is unlike PC, internet, mobile, cloud, and we looked at how it is different in many aspects. Some areas it is the same, but in many, many aspects it is different. And I shared a bunch of resources and Tracy said, this is too much. Can you prioritize for me? I'm pulling Tracy's leg because I know her. Okay, so if you guys have any questions, a bunch of you reached out last time. Don't be shy, reach out. I might be late responding to you, but I always respond. So let's get to, before we get to today, we had 125 last time, we have 150 today. Last time we had 80. I assume we'll get 80 today. In the audience, we have students and faculty about 20%. Startups about 55%. Investors about 15%. Any investors in the room? Okay. Yes. Lauren, please talk to Tracy. But investors like to hide. That's why they are on Zoom. So, in the last session, we'll have everybody come here so they cannot hide. Okay. And you know about me, so let's get started. How many of you have been to a Super Bowl? Yeah?
Oh, Super Bowl?
Super Bowl. Any of you? Wow. That's surprising. I thought all Americans go to Super Bowl. It's like a so I have never been to Super Bowl, but last week I went to the Super Bowl of AI. We had the NVIDIA annual conference. Jensen Huang, I think he's better than Taylor Swift. He spoke for 2.5 hours. No notes, no teleprompter, no help on stage. And this was the stage, and you can see him. If you have 2.5 hours, or please find 2.5 hours, listen to his keynote. He can do 100 times better job than I can. And maybe that's the best way to spend, after you go back, right? The slides will have the link, so you can get there easily. Okay, so we'll talk about session 2. So one thing I was thinking, today we'll primarily talk about how AI is impacting enterprise, big business, consumer use cases, and then sales, marketing, product, support, et cetera, et cetera. So if you're a startup, you might be thinking, well, I'm not a big business. Why am I here? The reason we need to understand what's happening out there is if you're a startup, they are your potential customers. They are your potential partners, right? So understanding how they are thinking about AI is kind of imperative. If you are faculty, I've been consulting a lot. I'll show you real life case studies on how companies are implementing, how Walmart is implementing, John Deere is implementing, and so on. And investors follow the money. So we will talk about where the money is. Okay. So if you don't remember anything else, remember this one slide. We'll talk about how AI and Gen AI is moving to the right across enterprise and consumer. We'll talk about how the adoption is growing. We'll talk about how the modalities are diversifying. So modalities are text, video, images, software. How revenues are increasing, how costs are decreasing. If you read mainstream media, you might go away thinking, well, only NVIDIA is making money. There is no revenue, right? AI is not moving fast enough. I will debunk all those myths. Okay? So how is AI getting adopted in the real world? Number 2, in enterprise, in consumer, across functions, I have what I call a use case map. I trademarked it. Think of it as a cheat sheet for different enterprise verticals. What are the different use cases? And what is happening at that intersection? Same with consumer, same with function. The second thing is, in the short term, in the 1, 3, 5-year horizon, AI is about faster, better, cheaper. AI is about saving costs. AI is about improving productivity. And so this discussion around people will lose jobs, it is a real discussion. People will lose jobs. In the long term, AI is about creating new value, solving cancer, helping with robots if you are doing a 100-story skyscraper, right? It's not very safe for you and I. If you're going down in mining, it is better to use a humanoid. So in the long run, AI is about creating new value, things we are not able to do today. And that is all about the top line. So you can think of it as we make things more efficient, improve the bottom line, but then we grow by pursuing the new use cases. Okay? Number 3, this may not apply to startups, but if you're an enterprise, you're like, okay, this is great. Where do I begin? Right? So I've been using a model that I'll share with you. It's a 4-step model. I've implemented it multiple times. And it's a good way to get started. And finally, I got some cheat sheets for you. Okay? All right, let's start with number 1. So we looked at this slide last time, just to refresh your memory. The left-hand side says the past revolutions, internet, mobile, cloud, they were really about saving cost. They were really about putting an infrastructure in place so you can scale. What do I mean by that? If I look at Amazon, before Amazon, Robert, you were buying a book, you were reading a book. After Amazon, you're buying a book, you're reading a book. That use case did not change, right? Now, if you are buying a digital book, like physical pieces became digital, right? If you're buying online, you're not going to the store. So it became more convenient. It became faster. It became cheaper. But the use case did not change. When we think about AI, there is some of that, like I mentioned, in the short term, faster, better, cheaper, saving cost. But in the long run, in every vertical, it's about things humans are not able to do today. And I'll give you a bazillion examples. And that's where the action is. Okay? So key message 1, AI is getting deployed, AI is getting adopted. I've been doing some work with BCG and McKinsey. Some of these slides came out of that work. I'll give you a sneak peek. So this is McKinsey. McKinsey is saying by 2030, 25% of GDP. It's only 5 years. The global GDP today is 120 trillion. That's the potential impact, right? Just to put things in perspective. You know, we've been talking about SaaS, software as a service, for the last 10 years, 15 years, right? Salesforce, ServiceNow, these companies have come out of SaaS. The total market for SaaS is less than $1 trillion. If you add up Salesforce and ServiceNow and all the startups, the TAM is less than $1 trillion. We are talking about 20 trillion. If you double click, this is the range that McKinsey is talking about, 17 to 25 trillion. And then some other statistics, 50 to 70% of things will get automated and so on and so forth. But we cannot underestimate the big numbers these top consulting firms have come up with. These are not back of the envelope. These are based on significant modeling, right? So that 17 to 25 trillion, it's all AI. If you only look at Gen AI, it's about this number, 3 to 5 trillion, 2.6 to 4.4 trillion. One of the things that has happened is because AI has been in the news so much, in addition to Gen AI adoption is going up. And mobile adoption is going up. And cloud adoption is going up. Because there is so much focus on using the latest technology to save cost or increase revenue. Technology adoption is going up, right? It's very interesting. So here's a good way to think about this. The dark blue line, this is use of AI for the last 5-7 years. It went from 20% to 60%, and it has been staying roughly flat. As Gen AI started coming into the enterprise, Gen AI shot up from 30% to 60, 70, 75%. And because of that focus, AI adoption is going up, right? By the way, we talk about Gen AI a lot, but you cannot really separate AI and Gen AI. So when I say AI, I mean machine learning, I mean expert systems, I mean Gen AI. So think of the umbrella, okay? On some slides, I'll point out Gen AI only. But generally, AI has become the big umbrella. Okay, here's another assessment we did. We said over the last 4 years, how many business functions have adopted AI? Yeah.
Brent has a question for you.
Yeah, just hold on. How many of businesses have adopted AI? So if you look at one or more functions, it dipped in 22, but then it has been going up. This means 78% of enterprises have adopted AI at least in one function. And then 63 have adopted in 2 functions, and so on and so forth. If you average everything up, it's roughly 3 functions in businesses. Okay, Pratish, I'll come there in a minute. Here's another way to slice it. You guys will have access to these slides, so you can spend a lot more time. This slide says, on the y-axis are all the functions. On the x-axis are different enterprises, different verticals. What's the adoption at the intersection? So, okay. So in professional services, like consulting firms, 49% of consulting firms are using AI in sales and marketing, right? 41% are using in product. 34% are using in knowledge management. So if you look at this, you say, hey, marketing and sales is leading deployment. Then product and service development is maybe number 2. Right? So if you're a startup, you can think about where the puck is today and where it is going if you go down the list. Here's another way to look at it. When we say Gen AI, it's not just text. So 63% are using text, but then images, coding, video, these numbers have been growing. If you look at the impact of Gen AI on revenue, basically the left-hand side is first half 24. The right-hand side is second half 24. Left-hand side says the dark blue is revenue increased by 10%, 6 to 10%, less than 5%. And all numbers have been going to the right. Right? So simple message, Gen AI is impacting revenue. It has begun to impact revenue. You would want revenue to go up much, much higher. But we are in the early part of the cycle, right? And if you look at cost, again, same thing. Cost reductions of more than 20%, up to 20%. Again, they are moving in the right direction. So to summarize, AI is not just about the technology sector, not just about NVIDIA, not just about OpenAI. AI is real life for these businesses. They are adopting, they are deploying. It's having an effect on revenue and cost. I will talk about some specific companies. So it becomes more real, right? Let me take a couple of questions. Yes.
Red wants to know, would you say that Elon Musk's dodge action towards the federal government is due to predicting the emergence of generative AI, or is the technology not there yet?
So Brett, good question. Without getting into the political aspects, the US economy is $30 trillion. Out of 30 trillion, government sector is about 7 trillion. So let's say about 25%, right? DOGE as defined basically says there is an opportunity to save cost in that 25%. And there have been many examples. AI, Gen AI is one of the tools they have at hand. But guess what? Some of the examples I've seen, they don't even have cloud in place, right? Some of the software has been written in COBOL. It's even before my time, right? Yes, COBOL used to be a programming language. Okay. So again, I'm not part of DOGE, but we can safely assume that they are using all tools at their disposal: internet, mobile, cloud, latest PCs, AI, to find cost savings, right? And their target is, let's say, 1 trillion. Finding 1 trillion of cost savings out of 7 is 15%. That should be very viable. Okay. Yeah.
On a different note, I was reading that now they're starting to use AI as tutors for high school students.
Yeah.
And they're actually showing improvements on their test scores. So what I'm wondering is, if I would like to create something like that, do I need to create a whole app, or can I simply just, put something in Google so that I can create my own tutor for whatever needs I may have?
Yeah. Yeah. What's your name?
Ricardo.
Ricardo, thank you for coming. Ricardo's question is, how is Gen AI being used in education? And how can I get started? That's a very good question. I'll talk about it a little. And we can also continue after the class. Okay? Yeah.
One of your earlier slides, you're giving where it was historically, where it is now, especially in regards to like Gen AI. So the old style, meaning we're using the technology to really be more automated on repetitive tasks, reduce human error, things like that. But we're just saying the new, you went past the slide fast, but it was really talking about new ideas, new concepts. So the idea of the combination of AI and the human entrepreneurial content experience. That's what I was, maybe it's what you're going to be talking about,
Yeah.
but it was the idea of like, where is it? Is it in the prompt engineering in regards to how we ask the question, how we engage the AI
Yeah.
through our use case of our work experience, our particular expert knowledge in our field?
Yeah.
Is that part of, you know what I'm saying, where you're going with this?
Yeah. Basically, you are saying, Pankaj, you're moving too slowly. I'm already ahead of you. So let's go there. We'll talk about that. Okay? All right. So now we'll talk about in different sectors, what use cases are we using AI for, right? In education, in what you said, right? Okay. So I'm going to skip this. Okay. So I have this cheat sheet. On the left, we'll map different segments, enterprise, consumer, different functions, etc. On the top, I bucketed different use cases under these 8 umbrellas. And what we look at is, in the short term, how AI is getting deployed to improve operational efficiency, to automate things you're already doing, to optimize revenue different ways, to manage some risk. Those are all examples of faster, better, cheaper. Those are all examples of things we already do. How can I be more efficient doing them? Okay. And then the other 4 buckets, better engagement with customer. I'll give you some examples. It's mind-boggling how people are using Gen AI to better understand your customer, better engage with your customer. Product design, product innovation, service design, helping you make decisions. And lastly, personalization. Okay, so think of this as the framework. Now I'll bring a use case map for enterprise verticals. Okay, I would say this is 80% complete. This is based on personal work I have done in different industries. This is not comprehensive. This is not all of the industries, but it's a good place to start. So top 10 industries on the left. And let's pick a couple examples. So in the short term, all of these industries are using AI to get efficiencies out of the system or inefficiencies out of the system. Ricardo, this Doge is another example of that, right? In healthcare, where are inefficiencies, right? You know, insurance paperwork, all of the patient journey, the amount of time you spend with the doctor actually getting feedback is 5–10%. The rest of the time, the reason you pay so much is because there's so much bureaucracy, so much non-value added work. Those are inefficiencies. We can take them out of the system, right? Imaging. So in the US, we have 330 million people, 60 million have diabetes. 30 million do not know it. Because the existing way to detect is not sharp enough. It's not precise enough. That's why we call it sick care, not healthcare, right? If you catch, I'm using diabetes as an example, but any number of diseases, if you catch them early, you can actually do healthcare, not sick care. Using AI to do early detection through imaging, through other ways. You are already doing that. How can you get better at it, right? You guys used education. So, I'm teaching this class. I have a busy calendar. This is a 3-unit class, 45 hours. Grading everybody's assignments takes a lot of time, right? I would rather be doing this. So using AI to do automatic grading. Dean, I assume it's okay at school to do that, but that's a good example, right? We can go down the list. Supply chain optimization. I tell you, I did some work with Louis Vuitton. We made a smartwatch with them. I was working at Qualcomm. At Qualcomm ships multiple billion chips every year. I had to wait the next day to see what shipped the previous 24 hours. Supply chain is not real time. It's batch mode. It reminded me of, Big Blue and big IBM machines. And this is one of the best technology companies in the world, right? Then I'm doing some work with Louis Vuitton. It's a fun story, actually. We launched a smartwatch with Louis Vuitton. The CEO, he said, Pankaj, come with me. Let's do the launch together. I said, sure. He had a nice jet. He wanted to launch in Tokyo, Paris, and Santa Monica at the same time on the same day. How's that possible? And in person. So we did the launch in Tokyo. We flew to Paris in time for 9 a.m. We flew to Santa Monica in time for 10 a.m. launch. And as we were flying, on his iPhone, he could see real time who's buying, what SKU they're buying, what price point they're paying, what's the demographic, et cetera, right? So Louis Vuitton has better supply chain than the best technology company. And that's incredible. Why? Because Louis Vuitton was in the old ages, and then they leapfrogged, and they actually deployed AI, the previous kind of AI, ML. So they had that advantage. They didn't have invested capital in cloud and internet, right? We can go through other examples. If you go to the right, this is about new use cases. So I'll take some examples. Drug discovery. For all the investment, we have still not solved cancer and diabetes we touched on, and Alzheimer's, and so on and so forth. Why is that? Because the clinical trial process takes 12, 15 years. There's a 95% chance of some drug getting successful. So even though the pharma companies, the healthcare companies, the hospitals have a lot of cash, it is not enough to test all of the possible permutations. There are so many startups disrupting that cutting clinical cycle by an order of magnitude, 10x. So you can test many, many more permutations. And that's the secret for solving cancer and so on, right? It's something we have not been able to do. It's something new. This will solve that. The other example actually I like to use is personalized medicine. You know, when I have headache, I take aspirin. It's effective only 43% of the time. When you take melatonin, it's effective 47% of the time. If you take it for 7 days, the effectiveness goes down. Why is that? Because these drugs are designed for the average person, average DNA, average lifestyle. None of us are average. So if you can design for my DNA, for my lifestyle, for what works for me, that will be much more effective, right? So personalized medicine is a good example of that. Ricardo, personalized one-on-one education is a good example of that. All of that is now possible with generative AI, right? Let me give you a few more examples. But before we do that, it's good to step back and say, how big is the opportunity we are talking about? So the first chart here is the global economy. It's about $120 trillion. The second is US, and then China, the last one. So US is 25% of the economy. China is 18. India is small, but growing very fast. If you look at the top 5, let's look at the global. How is 120 trillion split? Manufacturing is a third of the global economy. In the US, it's 20%. In China, it's 28%, but globally, right? You look at green, retail. It's number 2, like 20% of the global economy, and so on and so forth. So what I did was I said, okay, let's double click on each one of these. Let's look at manufacturing. These are some use cases. But Eastman, how many of you know Eastman? A few of you, right? Half of you. It's a $10 billion company out of Tennessee. They were ahead of the game. In 23, they implemented Gen AI. They saved $200 million in 1 year. The first year of implementation. They are public on that now. That goes straight to the bottom line, right? And it has a cumulative effect. 200 million out of 10 billion is 2%. With a PE of 20, 2% means a lot, right, in terms of market cap. What did they do? Basically, if you think of, you guys studied thermodynamics, you know how fluids flow in pipes. If you can optimize that, if you can remove the friction, it can be much more streamlined. I've worked on this project. I won't go into too much detail. But this is very early. They did not say, well, ChatGPT just came out. Let me see what's happening. I'm going to wait. Then maybe I'll do it, right? And Eastman, nobody is here from Eastman. It's not one of the most advanced companies, right? We don't think of Eastman as one of the advanced companies. Let's look at retail. Walmart. All of you have been to Walmart. It's a $650 billion. It has been the largest retailer. Amazon just crossed in Q4. Amazon revenue run rate was higher than Walmart in Q4. But 650 billion is a lot of billion. This is their mission statement. World's largest retailer, blending everyday low prices with AI-powered innovation. When we think of retail, we think of Amazon. We don't think of Walmart. Walmart has one of the most advanced AI data analytics teams in the Bay Area and in Bentonville. They have AI assistant. They have like, if you buy this, you'll bundle this, so you'll get better discount. Their customer databases is huge. They are able to do deals like that. And they're not public on the number, but it's of the order of $500 million savings just over the last couple of years per year. Right? So anybody who says, well, AI is not really bringing revenue, not having an impact, it will happen a few years from now. It's all crap, right? Financial services, Bank of America, I worked on this project. How many of you banked with Bank of America? Okay. In 21, 22, if you went to the website and you did the chat function, guess who was on the other side? A human. So you're talking to a human. Mind-boggling. What percentage of the time, basically it was a phone bank, what percentage of the time was human giving you accurate information? 45% of the time. Only 45% of the time. Now, when you go to Bank of America, I'm sure other banks have done it. I'm more familiar with this one. You talk to Erica. Erica is an AI assistant. So the glass half full person would say, but it's only accurate 85% of the time. I'm going to wait until it's 99.9%, right? The glass half full says, well, you're going from 45% to 85%. You're doubling the productivity. Bank of America fired all those people. They are saving cost and they're giving a better customer service, right? Real life example of using AI to replace human. Unfortunately, it means layoffs in the short term. In the long term, it's a different picture. Okay, healthcare, we talked a lot about healthcare. I'm going to skip this. Energy. So healthcare, by the way, GE is doing some amazing work. Shell in energy. Farming. In India, India is the most populous country in the world now, 1.4 billion people. 800 million. 800 million out of 1.4 earn their living in the farming business, right? We don't hear about them. We hear about Bollywood and so on. That's more than 50% of the country. Do you know what is the yield of planting the seeds and getting good crop out? If you plant the seed in your garden, you get 90%, 95%. You want to get 100%, right? On average, in India, do you know the yield? It is less than 10%. It's 7 or 8%. So think about it. 800 million people. That's 3 times the size of the US, 2.5 times. They're working night and day. They're doing this. Why is that? Because maybe you're not watering it the right way. Maybe the fertilizer is not right. Maybe, the rain gods did not cooperate, etc., etc. Many of these things can be controlled with what is called precision agriculture, right? When to water, when to plant, what fertilizers to put. Somebody knows the right answer. AI can be that right answer. And in India, what we are seeing is leapfrog. Because these guys, they had zero technology. Now, right? It's a very good example. Okay. I'm watching time. Similar thing in consumer space. In the short term, I'm seeing a lot of automation. Content editing, budgeting, health tracking, creating itineraries. These are things you already do. AI just makes it faster, better, cheaper, more convenient. In the long run, plenty of opportunities around one-on-one, around how you engage with the customer, right? Perhaps the best example of AI is autonomous driving. In the US, every year, 40,000 people are killed, I was going to say, but lose their lives because of accidents. And 75% of that is human error. When we think about Waymo, when we think about autonomous with Tesla, every other car company, will get there. This is not replacing what the human does with a machine. If that were the goal, we'll still have 40,000 people dying, right? It's a new use case. Using cameras, using LiDAR, using high definition mapping to make it much, much more safe. If we can go from 40,000 to 4,000, 4,000 is still too many people dying, but it's 36,000 less. If we can go from 4,000 to 400, right? Just think about the possibilities. Now, anytime you change behavior, us humans, we don't like that, right? So this is some work. It basically says interest in hybrid varies by country. China is farthest ahead. In this example of the 8 countries here, US is last. Like we are driving on good cars, you don't want to change, right? In switching brands, China is number 1, India is number 2, US is not. They are okay to try different things because their cars are not as good. I'm speaking in general, right? Autonomous is growing. This basically says, you guys cannot read it. It says, percentage of consumers worried about autonomous is lowest in China. It's still 47%. Anytime you think about new use case, new behavior, these things take time. Younger consumers. India, do you know the average age in India? Robert, what's the average age in India? 60. 60 might be the average age in Japan. 60.
Has to be much lower.
In India is 32. I don't have the latest data. This is maybe 6-month-old data, but right, it's in 30 plus minus, let's say. Think about that. If I had a 10-year-old, she would know more about what's happening on YouTube than I do, right? You guys have kids, So think about the generational shift that's happening in India. And 70% of consumers in India are saying, I want mobility as a service. I don't want to, right? And India, last year became the most populous country in the world, overtook China. The number one use case for AI is autonomous driving. It's the most complex. It has the highest stake. It will have the biggest impact. You can argue between that and healthcare, right? But the reason Tesla stock is so high is not because of what is happening today, but what might happen tomorrow, right? Another example is using Gen AI for social media. So where is Erica is our social media queen. Give her a big hand. 60% of brands are using Gen AI for social media.
I have a question. When you just mentioned autonomous driving, you feel it's gonna be more that or healthcare?
Yeah.
I mean, what's your hypothesis on it? Is this because the market or is it because people are gonna be more productive? Like we can work instead of driving?
Yeah.
Bottom line. I mean,
Both.
I'm curious.
Yes. So folks on the bridge, why can autonomous be so big, right? Size of the market. The soft SaaS business, SaaS TAM is $1 trillion. Think about the automotive TAM. Orders of magnitude bigger. Number one. Number two, safety. Killing people, not killing people. How do you put a price on that? Right? Number three, investment going in. We talked about Waymo last time. What Tesla is doing, what so many companies are doing. Number four, this is a sovereign imperative. It's not company by company. Like Saudi Arabia has Vision 2030. Today, 97% of their economy is oil-based. By 2030, they want that number to be 49 or less. They have no shortage of money. They are investing like there is no tomorrow. India, congestion. One time, Ashruti might know this. One time, it took me 4 hours from my hotel to the Bangalore airport. Right? I missed my flight. 4 hours just to get there. Right? Number 5, today, on average, we drive our car 5% of the time. Right? There are 168 hours in a week. 5% of 168 is 8 hours. I don't drive more than 8 hours a week. With autonomous, I can rent out my car. It can be driving itself 50% of the time. There are so many benefits, right? Okay, so our time is up, but I'll keep going. I'll try to wrap in 10 minutes. We can look at the same thing by function, right? So by sales, marketing, customer support, blah, blah. And if you double click here, when you think about by function, again, it's efficiency. And it's decision support. So using AI to make smarter, intelligent decisions. Having said all of this, these are some things we did at BCG. You say, where is everybody? So basically, this chart says 25% of the company, Fortune 500 companies, are in the activating space. They have a task force, they're looking at, they're studying, they're trying to figure out what to do. The blue is first pilots. And then the green is like scaling. Remember, none of these folks were doing anything with Gen AI in 22. So for enterprises, this is not slow, by the way. this is fast. You know, those of you who have worked in big companies, IT is a lagging indicator, right? It's not a leading indicator. I have some slides here, works we did at BCG around in sales. What are some case studies? Marketing, manufacturing, supply chain. So I'll leave those for you to look at. Let's close with, okay, this is great. There are many, many, many examples. These are not exceptions, these are rules in how AI is getting deployed. So the question is, okay, so what do I do? So I have used this model 15 times over the last 2 years. I came up with a fancy name. It's very simple, basically. First couple of months, do some training, have a point person, hold a team accountable. Start at the top, start with the CEO, start with the board, because this will require some investment before returns come. Next 3-6 months, start with one use case, you know, in vertical or in horizontal. Prove the value. Prove the ROI. Promote it like crazy. You want everybody. This AI is like quality. It's not, you know, when quality things happen, there used to be a quality department, and then it was everybody's job, right? Same thing happened with innovation. There used to be an innovation department, but then innovation became everybody's job. Same thing with AI, right? And then deploy the first use case. Many of the examples I showed about Bank of America and Shell and so on, that's just the first use case. And then basically, you know, our version of land and expand, right? I have more detail behind each one of these, but that's kind of the top line on where to start. So to summarize, AI is getting deployed. It's not when, it's how. It's not just the tech sector. It's lots of verticals. It's not just enterprise, it's consumer. There are different ways to slice it. So to make things easy for you guys, each one of these, they are like hyperlinked. So when you get the PDF, you can just double click here. You'll have access to the latest BCG, McKinsey, Bain, Deloitte, Accenture reports. Pick your favorite. They are actually quite detailed. You might say, why are these companies sharing all of this information, right? Isn't it competitive advantage? Don't they want to hide? No, the pie is so big that the more people embrace it, the more people deploy it, the faster we'll get there, right? And then a couple of articles I found. This one I particularly like. It goes through like 20 different use cases in honest to goodness language all of us can understand. And then this article, it's very interesting. Let's close on this. So this chart, you know, the first bar chart says, of the 50% of the things you do, 20% are, you need expertise. 30% is like you have to work with people, right? It's not skills, it's skill set. It's not technical expertise. It's how resourceful you are. And then the 50% is like transactional, right? So when you think about AI, what happens to these categories? If you go here, transactional goes down because you can just automate stuff. Human, relational goes up because that has more value. In the short term, the machine is not going to be as good on the relational aspects. Except for doctors, yes. Yes. And then, expertise, basically this is 100%, so it's percentage. And then this is what portion is humans and what is like co-pilot with humans, right? All of you will have a different answer. But if you look at this article, it's a 7-10 page article. It goes into the detail behind this. And it's very interesting to understand how people are thinking about it. Okay, so I'm very thankful to Brink for bringing us all together. We have the Brink team here. We have Pratyusha, say hello.
Hello.
We have Stephen, say hello. And we have Erica, say hello. So talk to any one of us. We are here to help. No fine print. The only thing we charge is a good thank you. If you say thank you. Okay. And last, if you guys don't have anything fun to do on Saturday, come by. We are having an all-day AI conference. You'll meet some interesting people. Actually, you'll get some good Indian food. So if you want to come, you can scan this. Okay, let me pause here. We started 10 minutes late. We are 10 minutes over. We have 47 people on the bridge, 15, 20 here. I'll stay until 6:45-ish. Let's have questions. Ricardo.
Yeah, question. Obviously, you have shown us a lot of, how the profits are increasing and all that stuff for many companies. So I guess what I'm gathering too is that AI is going to be, in a way, guided by profits. Because of course, all of the companies that are trying to double or triple their profits are going to use AI. My question is there any way to balance that for example, human needs that are not necessarily something that you can sell? For example, the part of the population that perhaps doesn't have access to many profitable things, but yet they want to benefit or create or develop certain things with AI that may be available for free for them. Any idea on how to balance that for-profit versus non-profit growth?
Yeah. So Ricardo's question is the need for profit, keep me honest, is the need for profit by big companies driving AI? If that is your takeaway, that's totally the wrong takeaway. Let's take a couple of examples. Let's take a 9-year-old in the prime of his or her psychological learning development. Let's do before and after. Before, how does she learn today? She learns in a classroom setting. It's a one-to-many. She's learning. Learning is mostly one way. It is not optimized for how she may want to learn. That's before. After, personalized one-on-one learning. If she can learn the way she grasps information, the way she learns, if she can interact, if she can talk talk back. If she can interact with the best teacher anywhere in the world, she will learn faster, she will learn better, she will retain, right? By the way, I went to school a long time ago. Some psychologists, some psychology report says you retain only 5% of the things you study at school. So what you're really learning at school is how you learn, the process of learning, not what you're reading, right? And how can you do that if somebody is talking at you 1 in 50, 1 in 100, whatever, 1 in 25? In that example, Ricardo, the benefit of using AI to do that personalized learning, I don't know what price I put for that. To make that possible, somebody has to implement AI. The education system has to change. If those entities don't have access to capital, are losing money, they will not be incentivized to make tomorrow possible, right? So it's not, this company wants to make money, so they are doing AI, others will suffer. It's actually the other way around. Let's keep going. I'm happy to talk to you offline. There will be unintended consequences. There will be some bad actors. That's the way of life. But like 95, 99%, it's about, the autonomous example. If autonomous saves 36,000 lives or 39,600 lives, how do you put a price on that? If that means Tesla makes more money, hallelujah. Right? Pratisha, next question.
We have Garrett Smith asking, can you speak on AI agent versus LLM use cases?
Yeah, Garrett, good question. I'm going to cover this in one of the future sessions. In the last class, we looked back. Now I'm trying to start with the user, with the use case, and then we'll talk about how to implement. Number one. Number two, LLM and agent, they are a little bit apples and oranges. So a language model is basically something you train based on data. So you can pattern match that data and do interesting things. Step one was information gathering, search. When ChatGPT started, ChatGPT basically gave you what you were looking for. Step two is, don't just give me good hotels in New York. You already have access to my calendar. You already have data on, how much I spend, what kind of hotels do I like to stay, credit card information, etc. Don't just, when I ask for hotels in New York, don't just give me that information. Act on it. Make a reservation. Get me the best deal. So you can think of agents as like actionable AI, right? Garrett, we'll talk a lot more about it, but these are not, you need LLM for agents to work. It's like a different software layer. I'll talk about it more in the next class. Your hand was up, yeah, welcome.
So kind of related to his, but also different. The goal is quality of life improvement, if I'm understanding this correctly. And we start with automation, then we move to personalization. Automation is kind of the small win and with the change management of 4D. But there's this pressure to be the first mover, right? So that's going to create more hours of work and more stress, which is counter to the quality of life improvements that AI sort of promises. Once we do that with automation, we're gonna have to do that with personalization. So when do we get those benefits of more time with loved ones and hammock on the beach?
Yeah. So your question, if I paraphrase, is, man, more technology, more investment, more stress. I want to spend more time with my family. That's your question, right? So isn't this a dilemma? I'll give you a flippant answer and a good answer. My flippant answer is, this is so exciting, right? Every time I talk about AI, I get so excited. It's invigorating. It is not stressful at all. I really mean that, by the way. I'm saying it's.
I agree, but I have a
Okay.
3-year-old, so
Yeah.
that's more exciting.
Yeah. Number one. Number two. Today, let's say you're working 5 or 6 days a week. You are doing a lot of, don't take it personally, but one is doing a lot of non-value added work. Paperwork, expense reports, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Driving 8-10 hours a week, that's dead work, dead time, right? If you take my word and say AI can eliminate that or reduce that, you will have more value-added time. If you're like me, I'll just do more, right? But you have the option to work half the time. So you have more time with your family. This is not me saying it. This is people who I respect. Don't pick on any one of them. Elon Musk, Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, Satya, Sundar, Masasan, successful, accomplished people around the world, Prime Minister Modi, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But nothing comes for free, right? You cannot,
right.
you cannot like sit back
Yeah, I
and
think,
say, I don't want to do the work. I just want the benefit. You can't do that.
well, the engaging work, I mean, I'm glad you answered that with number 2. The engaging work isn't the stressful stuff. When you're in flow state, it's the micromanaging of the, oh, well, you didn't process the widget, like this inefficient procedure manual said. And then we have to have a political office.
Yeah. So I think today we need to work. Tomorrow we will work because we want to work. And all kinds of research says when you are working because you want to do something, not need to do something, that's your most meaningful, more purposeful time, right? So the question is, how do we go from A to B? And AI will play a role in that. Let's keep moving. Pratyusha, any question on the bridge?
No.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'll work 80 hours a week so somebody else can take off 20, It's like, I think it just depends on what you want, right? My question is, with LLMs, Gen AI, and quote unquote AGI, so many of these verticals and use cases would potentially just be handled by one LLM system or a series of agents. So in the future, how does somebody compete with that level of knowledge and power and everything else if I'm creating a startup?
Yeah,
And how do I position? I mean, it's, on one hand, it feels like, you know, working towards being taken over soon, regardless of what I do.
yeah. So we will talk a lot more about this next week, but it's a very good question. Let me debunk some myths. I might have mentioned this, so if you remember, don't answer. How many LLMs are there in the US? I'll just shout out a number. Hundreds. Okay, the rest of you are shy. We talk about OpenAI, we talk about Google, we talk about Anthropic, we talk about Meta. I looked at this in December. There were about 1,000 LLMs, growing roughly 20-25 a week in the US. In India, there are about 100 LLMs. In Saudi Arabia, there are 70-75 LLMs. So comment number one. Now, this is not about one LLM being successful. So why do we need all these LLMs? Right? That's the question. And by the way, most of the LLMs are popping up in startups. So why do we need all these LLMs? Let's think about financial sector. Think about Wall Street. If you're doing algorithmic trading, if you're trying to understand, stock market trends, etc., you're not going to use OpenAI, ChatGPT, or Gemini. That is all public information, right? If you are JP Morgan has been doing trading for umpteen years. The data they have about the customer, about the trading, about which trade was successful, which was not, that's proprietary data. That is not available to ChatGPT, right? So Wall Street has multiple versions of what I call DLM, domain-specific language model. Not everyone will be successful, but to train that, you need proprietary data. That's your golden goose, right? It's the combination of the proprietary data and if you think of LLM as like language model, right? I'm working with Lauren on making food planning a walk in the park. So if you're going to do food planning, you need recipes, right? You can go to the wild web and find lots of recipes, but they will not be high quality. Everybody has access. How do you differentiate? So Lauren's strategy is, okay, who are the key brands? What recipes do they have? How can I partner with them? So we solve this problem with that proprietary information. And that language model is not going to be ChatGPT, right? That's going to be a very specific language model trained on this very specific data. And by the way, once I start using the app, I'm giving data every day. It needs to be like evergreen. Good startup example.
Well, just a quick follow-up. So, I hear people creating these fine-tuned sort of models on top of LLM or whatever to improve it. And then a year later, GPT's newest model is far superior than that. So not to
No, no, no,
You
so,
know?
no, so that's still general purpose. Right? I'm an early investor in OpenAI. I cannot be very specific, but this much I can say. Everything we know about OpenAI is general purpose. Healthcare is a big business at OpenAI. Healthcare vertical. It's a vertical business. They haven't talked about it too much, so I won't talk about it too much. That's very different. And so what you're describing is, if it's a general purpose and ChatGPT has done this, and then there is a startup, it is in ChatGPT's interest to keep moving up. So this thing goes away. But that's different segment, right? What I'm talking about is domain specific, lot of opportunity, right? Let me take more questions. Yeah. Yeah.
We brought up this word, you hear it a lot, like used cases, right? So
Yeah.
we all have subject matter expertise, I imagine, in our field.
Yeah.
Now I'm not, as you're talking, I'm generating use cases to get ideas. But how do you prioritize? What is that top? Because it takes time, it takes energy, it takes resources.
Yeah.
So I'm prioritizing this concept behind use case, and you had the 4D model. And I read how that's ready to 6 months.
Mhm.
So once again, how do we, as we might have multiple ideas, how do we prioritize? What's the best use case to run through this 4D model and to see if it's really a true value proposition to the community?
Yeah. I'll give you a general answer. Maybe we can have a more specific discussion. How do you prioritize something? Well, you're prioritizing against a criterion you have, right? JR, right? JR. JR's criterion might be impacting her kids or children. Maybe JR works in healthcare, so doing it in healthcare. Maybe her criterion is, I don't want to maximize profit. I just want to eliminate waste, etc. Right? Your criterion might be, you're a business. The more money you generate, the more things you can do. You are behind scale. You want to scale across use cases. So, short answer, if you can articulate what really matters, and you can come up with all the possibilities, then you have some kind of scoring system to prioritize, right?
Rubric, I got you.
Yeah. So that's one answer. The other answer is, what I'm showing here, guys, this is not theory. This is not theory. Each one of these intersections, for confidential reasons, I cannot say which company, right? But these are real examples of real implementation, of real projects in real life, right? So if you look at this, what are people prioritizing in this example? Right? If you look on the left-hand side, they're not focused too much on exact strategy. They're focused a lot on finance, accounting, expenses, how you report, product development. And then they are focused on automating stuff they're already doing, or they have so much data, they want to use that data to make smarter decisions, right? So these can give you some pointers, but your use case is your use case, right? Yes, Pratyusha.
Brett wants to know, how do we know if the ideas for business opportunities for AI haven't been thought about or done already?
Brett, you can speak up. Can you make the question a little more specific? So when you say, how does one know something has not already been done? Can you elaborate on that? Maybe give an example?
So say if we have an idea with AI, and we're kind of going through the motions of trying to get it developed, how do we know if it hasn't been already thought about through like proprietary means or something that's already being patented currently, that type of thing? Does that make sense?
Yeah, Brett, without going into specifics, what do you do, and how long have you worked?
How long have I worked for AI or
For any company?
the most 10 years?
Okay. So Brett has 10 years of working, and Brett wants to know, how do I know what's happening out there so I don't reinvent the wheel, right? Shruti, what's the best way for Brett to get 30 years experience? So Shruti is smart. She's a grad assistant in my AI class. The best way to get 30 years experience is to hang out with somebody who has 20 years experience. So 10 plus 20 gives you 30 years experience. You're not making the same mistakes, right? So Brett, the simple answer is come to this class, read all the reports, understand who's doing interesting work in your domain, read everything you get your hands on, so you can avoid the mistakes they already made, right?
Understood.
If you have something specific you're working on and you want to know, is this differentiating enough? I'm happy to talk to you offline.
I'll see you on Wednesday.
Sorry?
I'll see you on Wednesday. I have a...
Okay. All right, other questions?
I just wanted to say, for the event on Saturday, the price doubles tomorrow, so it's like $149 now, and tomorrow it goes up to $300. So just if you plan on attending, might want to buy early.
That's good tip. But you guys know me, so if you want to attend, we'll figure out. So don't worry about it. But don't pay $300 if you can pay $149. So just drop me a note. My email. That does not mean wait until the last minute, right? My email is here, or you can scan this. Okay, couple more questions.
Andrea has a question.
Yes.
She has her hand raised, so she can unmute herself. You can ask her.
Yeah, Andrea, do you want to unmute and ask the question?
Yes, I would. So if you're working on creating a product that has AI as a central feature, how do you figure out, because it takes some time to create the product, AI moving so quickly, how do you know how to create a product that will incorporate where IA is going as opposed to just where IA is now? You don't want I don't want my product to be out of date by the time I get it made.
Yeah. So Andrea, that's a simple question. The answer depends on the specific situation you might have, so we can continue offline. But couple things. It starts with the problem. So I'm teaching this class. We have 8 startups. Anytime any of the team says, wealth management, the problem I'm solving is AI-based wealth management, I shut it down, right? That's a solution. The problem is maybe wealth management is general one size fits all, and you want to personalize. So the first thing is obsess about the problem. Make sure the problem is real. It needs to be solved. AI is, I know we are talking a lot about AI, but in real life, AI is just a tool. Maybe AI will help you, but don't start on day one thinking I'm going to do an AI startup. On day one, think about what problem you are obsessed with and how can you solve that problem. Tracy, how many times does a founder pivot in the first few years, right? A lot.
And I'm surprised how many founders can't articulate the problem. They jump right to like their solution or their technology.
Yeah.
Still.
Yeah. You can find these stats on some website. Basically, a founder pivots 7 times in the first 2 or 3 years. If you are pivoting on the problem, you're not a good founder. Sorry to say it that way. If you're pivoting on the solution, but you're so obsessed about the problem, you can be a very good founder, right? Long story, but short version is AI tools will change. The fundamentals likely will not change. And so we have to think about exactly what problem you're solving and what's the sustainable differentiated way to solve that problem using AI as a tool. Andrea, your question is a good one. I'm not giving you a direct answer because the direct answer needs to be in the context of the startup or idea you might have, if that makes sense. Okay, let's, you have my email here. Shoot me an email. We can take it offline. Okay, guys, we have 5 more minutes. A couple last questions. Ratisha, anything on? Nothing. Yeah.
What is USD and you in particular doing? Because the answer you gave him is top of mind for like my dream AI founding company.
Yeah.
I learn very much hands-on. I learn by making mistakes, and most environments aren't really conducive to that kind of work.
Yeah.
So in my dream would be a totally asynchronous MBA that's like, okay, we think you're ready. You've done all these classes, all these projects, all these networking, and then I just took 5 years and kind of did it one-on-one. So would USD ever get to that place, or is there a plan to?
Yeah, so your question is, if AI is so important, what is USD doing, right? I ran into the previous dean March 23 on a panel. We were on a panel. So I asked, so what is USD doing on AI? And the answer was, it's too early. You know, we don't, education institutions don't move fast, right? 3 months later, I got a call to request me to teach a class. I had never taught a class. So the first AI class I taught in Q4 23, we had 20 students. This is a year after ChatGPT came out. I said, how many of you are using ChatGPT? How many hands went up, you think? A year after ChatGPT was launched, Q4 23.
Maybe 2.
Were you in the class? Yeah, 2 people were using ChatGPT. My class was the only AI class at USD. It's shocking. Then I taught another one, spring of 24. Another one, fall of 24. 30 students. How many hands went up? Fall 24. All of them. One hand didn't go up, but you know, this person said, oh, everybody's hand is up. I'm just kidding. Anybody play golf?
Yes,
Yeah. Who said yes?
that's me, Pankaj, Garrett Smith.
Garrett. Garrett, how did you learn golf?
I taught myself on Instagram.
No, that's not a serious answer.
I went to a few lessons, but mostly I taught myself. I practiced. I taught myself and went to practice. I taught myself during practice. Time would probably be the answer.
Yeah. I tried to learn golf on a PC screen. It didn't work out well, right? First, if you're going to impact AI, you have to start using it. In the last class, I was still the only AI class. But there's this person, Sarah Wu. She did a project. She worked with all of the admin staff at UST. She did a workflow analysis. How are people using? Or what do people do? And she is deploying a system. So all admin staff can use AI tools, right? This semester, I'm still the only class at UST. And UST is #1 school. I went to #2 school. I went to UPenn. So I ran into somebody at UPenn about a month ago. And she had completed her master's from UPenn in computer science. And she started a robotics company. So I'm like, Gwen, how was the experience? She said, not very good. What happened? You know, I'm doing UPenn Master's Computer Science. They teach me C++. The courses have not changed for 10 years. So during the day, I have to do my classes. At night, I studied AI. And she graduated and started an AI humanoid company, right? So this is not a UST comment. This is educational institutions move slowly. At UST, this is my 4th class. UST is allowing me to do things like this. Brink, we have many, many AI companies. Don't talk about this too much. This Wednesday, I'm actually meeting with Dean to kick off a project around how to integrate AI in the Knauss curriculum.
Sorry, what?
Knauss School of Business curriculum, right? Sometimes these things take time, but AI is not something that you sit back. So UST is doing a number of things. Stephen is saying time is up. Okay, last question. Okay, so guys, time is up. Thank you very much. Next class, we'll focus on where are the opportunities for startups and where should investors be looking at. We'll have similar discussion. And I'll leave you with this. Maybe, I'm coming from NVIDIA GTC. The software TAM is $1 trillion. If you look at manufacturing, if you look at assembly line, if you look at healthcare, if you look at farming, if you look at construction, if you look at mining, blah, blah, blah. If you look at all the non-productive work in these verticals, it's about 20 trillion. SaaS, 1 trillion. Opportunity to replace non-productive work with some kind of robot, 20 trillion. Right? maybe, but by the way, robotic surgery, robotic fertilizing, blah, 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 right? So we will talk about this, but we'll talk about other things. I have a class to teach. Andy, welcome. Every class we have a interesting guest speaker. Today's guest speaker is Andy White. Andy's focus is San Diego. His firm will only invest in disruptive technologies, disruptive businesses in San Diego. So Andy will talk about why is that and how does he do it? What's the secret to success in the class? Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone on the bridge.